on this computer. Cool. Okay. I think I figured it out. All right. So thank you so much for joining me now for the second episode of our Community Partner podcast. I'm really excited to talk about this topic because I think that a lot of families right now are really struggling with either how to, manage dealing with having children home all the time or keeping their kids safe and healthy while also educating them. And there's just a lot of challenges that are, coming up involving families and children. And you have a lot of great expertise on this subject. So I'm really excited to hear what you have to say. But to start off, I think one of the things I wanted to, just broad topic, what do you think is one of like the biggest challenges that families and kids are facing right now with this pandemic?
Yikes. So, I mean, there's quite a few. I would say staying connected to each other when there is so much required of both the adults and the kids. I know that summer's, here, and so kids are going to be out soon, but I would say thus far, it's definitely trying to stay connected and staying sane, so to speak, when there's just so much kind of required and there's so much stuff going on regarding the virus and the fear and everything.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the staying connected. Do you mean like to each other or just with the outside world, like managing kind of like dealing with everything outside while also handling everything in your home? Or
I actually would think both. Staying connected as a family unit because when you're with it's rare that like as families we are in the same space as much as we are now. And so I think what's happening is you add like work, you add kids school, you add parents needing to help with kids school, you add the stress of if people have lost their jobs, and they're trying to look for work, you add the just general overwhelm that people are having. And then like everyone's lives, including the kiddos, have been like completely turned upside down. And people are searching for coping skills that they may not have access to. They're trying to, find different coping skills. And, parents are getting super overwhelmed and kind of like, checking out a little bit, whether it's like, I'm just going to go look at Facebook for a while, or, I got to watch a movie, something, to just kind of get a moment to a break. And so what happens is in the family unit, they, everyone kind of starts to like break off because you're just so stressed out, and you're with each other so much that the interaction that starts happening is, just kind of overwhelmed interaction. And then, also too, I think connecting with the outside because, once we have all this stuff going on in the house, some people are starting to feel, whether they're feeling a little depressed, anxious, everything. They may not be more apt to want to go out and connect with other people via Zoom or phone or whatever. They're trying to navigate their in-house structure situation. And so it kind of affects, stepping out of their boundaries and trying to figure out how to connect with people outside of the home.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know I've seen that in my own community as well. Just there's so much going on in like your little hub that you can't even begin to think about, what's going on outside. Are there any like helpful strategies or like coping mechanisms that you found or that you use to help kind of balance everything going on with, connecting to your family, but also the world?
Yeah. I would say using the word balance right now balance is a rough word. I have gotten to the point where we literally take it day by day because every day something's changing. And so I think the biggest thing, I'm a parent. I have 3 kids. My oldest is 16, my daughter's 7, my youngest is 3. And so I have very different ages in the house. And the biggest thing I would say as a parent and as an adult in the house is to use the analogy of putting your oxygen mask on. That whole theory of you are as the adult in the house, and also being a single parent in a house where I have the kids probably 90% of the time. I found pretty quickly that if I wasn't doing things that were healthy for me to keep running the household and to keep managing the stress and the changes and the kids' stress, and because you become like the frontal lobe for all the kids, when they're really overwhelmed, and they don't know how to navigate their emotions about this, and then as adults we don't know how to navigate our emotions about this. So I think really having to like step back and say, what are the things I need to do for myself so that we can get through the day, and get the things done that we needed to do, and that we're doing it as healthily as we can, given the circumstances. So, I know for myself, it was figuring out, okay, what are the things that help me like fill my bucket to help my kids, exercise. So I get up nearly every day and I start my day with a 3-mile walk, not for exercise, anything other than just having that space to clear my head, be outside, be in nature, and just have it be quiet. And so I start with that. And then I also do like the regular workout stuff that I would do that I know helps me. But also making sure that like I'm fueling my body well, like eating well, that I'm, we would have like a chalkboard in the kitchen when the kids were in school where the night before I would outline like what it's going to look like roughly for the day to give them an idea, because the kids are they're so turned upside down with, they've had a schedule, now they don't. So we would do things like that. And I mean, as the quarantine's gone on, things have gotten a little bit looser, or I would learn certain things would work, certain things wouldn't. But, I really stuck to, what do I need to do so I can help my kids? And then for the kids, trying to figure out and actually having conversations with them, which works better with a 16-year-old than it does with a 3-year-old, about like, what do they need right now? Like, what are the things that they feel like they need, or they're overwhelmed about, and to be able to help them, because as adults, it's easy to say like, I'm stressed, I need to go for a walk. But, a 16-year-old may not feel like they can say like, hey, like I would really love, like my son one night was like, I just would really love to get some sushi somewhere, and so that was something he just felt like he really wanted to just chill out and have something that felt normal to him. And so we figured that out. But, you got to ask them. So it's trial and error to find the balance. And some days, to be honest, it's crazy, with the kids and trying to navigate all of that. And you have to give yourself grace. Everyone's experiencing some form of that. So yeah, I mean, those are a few things that we've done here.
Yeah, I definitely, I think, taking care of yourself as a parent and also just as a person is super crucial. So I really like that you talked about that. I love the analogy of the putting your oxygen mask on first. I've been seeing that a lot. I think it's really, true. You need to, take care of yourself before you can even start to take care of other people.
Yeah. And also too, all of us are in therapy. And I think therapy is great and I'm not afraid to ever talk about it. My 2 older ones still see their therapist through telehealth. I still see my therapist through telehealth. And I think that, it's probably more important now. My oldest knows like, okay, it's mom's turn, and he plays with the kids downstairs. I can hear what they're doing, and then when Leia has her turn and Zachary, we go through it. And I think that's also something that's really important right now. It's a third party person that's not in your house that you can talk to. And the therapists for the kids have been really great about how to figure out how to do therapy with them. Like, whether they're doing like house scavenger hunts of like, what makes you feel comfortable in the house, or what makes you laugh in the house, things like that. They've been doing a really great job. And so I think that's also like another resource too, for people that they actually probably have more access to now, that you can just do it virtually as opposed to having to fit it into a schedule, of driving somewhere and stuff like that.
Yeah, I definitely think talking to a third party person is very helpful. Because, you spend all this time with the same people, and you get very like pent up. It's a big problem. Do you find that it's been difficult to kind of talk to, I know you have an older kid, so it's probably easier with him, like talk to kids about what's happening, while giving them kind of the full extent of the problem, but also not scaring them too much? Like, how do you kind of balance and have that conversation?
So it's different for every age group. So I'll use my daughter. She's 7, and so she's super smart. And I've seen some people talk about saying like you could equate it to like the flu. We have this virus, it's going around, it makes people sick. But we had the flu in February, and like end of January, beginning of February, and they didn't shut down the world for it. And so Leia was like, I don't buy that. So I have tried to explain to them as age appropriate as possible, and in some ways, given the significant changes in their life, I think kids are very smart and they know there is something serious going on. And so I have said to them, I explain, that there is this virus. There's actually a really great like coloring book and story that Leia's therapist sent over about, I think it's like 2 little mice and talking about the virus. And yeah, it's super cute, and you can color about it. The kids can ask questions. That was really good to kind of explain to her the basics about what a virus is, and like how does it come about, and what is a vaccine, and how do we keep ourselves healthy. For a 7-year-old, those are kind of the questions that we've been kind of answering. And with Zachary, it's a little different because, he'll go online and he'll Google stuff and he'll say, Mom, I just saw this, or I saw that. And for him, they've been a lot more honest conversations, and he has expressed a lot. And what I try to just explain to him, and reassure him is that we are doing everything that we can right now, that we are isolating, we have a very small social circle, and I explained to him why we do that, that, we eat well, that we get outside and exercise, we do the things to make sure that we're staying healthy, and we wear our, my kids really don't go out in public, honestly. Zachary's gone out once now, but when he did, he knows we wear masks. We talk about why. And so it's just kind of educating them more. And, there have been times when they've asked the tough questions about dying and things like that. And, I think in those moments, I try to reassure them that we're doing the things that we can do. Like, where do we find the control in the situation, and the times where a lot is out of control right now. And so, and then with Henry, he's so little, being 3, that he doesn't really understand. With younger kids, you're going to start to see, as parents, there's some stuff to kind of like watch for, because like he definitely has also been affected as well. But you see it in different ways, that it's not like he's going to come to you and say like, oh, I'm scared of a virus.
Right.
He with little kids, you look at like sleep changes, which I've seen, kids getting up in the middle of the night, having fears, things like that, changes in like their regulation or their energy. Are they like, were they on average, how were they during the day, and now are they like not getting out of bed in the morning? Are they kind of sluggish, they don't want to play in the house or outside? Or are they on the opposite end, where they're super wound up and they can't kind of calm themselves down? Things like that I kind of watch for. Outbursts for things that they wouldn't normally have outbursts for. Right. Because they're just feeling super overwhelmed, or feeling sensitive, unfocused, having new fears that, like Leia, I've heard in her play, talking about coronavirus and COVID and things like that. So,
Yeah.
As parents, it's being really mindful of kind of watching for signs that that your kid's kind of having some distress, which, would be very common right now.
Yeah, I'm sure. Do you feel like it's gotten your kids have kind of, or not your kids, but kids in general have been adapting more as time has gone on? Or do you think, I know a lot of kind of people who fully understand what's going on and like, you know, adults are kind of getting tired of all the regulations and they're getting really frustrated. Do you think the same can be said about kids, or do you think they're a little more flexible about everything that's going on?
Um, Speaking for the kids that I've seen, and from what I've heard from my friends, I don't think that they're really adapting. I don't think any of us are really adapting. I think that we're being asked to like live in a way that's kind of not like human nature. You know, like we by human nature connect with people, and so for kids, they are, you know, they're definitely getting frustrated. They want to go see their friends. They don't understand why they can't, you know, be near their friends. They wanna just play and hang out and do that stuff. And I mean, I think it's going to be a real issue, you know, especially like you and I talked about with the CDC guidelines regarding schools and stuff.
Mhm.
I think the social emotional health of children is going to be something that's really going to need to be addressed, because it's easy to explain to an adult like you need to stay 6 feet away because of X. But I've seen firsthand, like it's nearly impossible to put two 7-year-olds and a 3-year-old in the front yard and have them stay away from each other. And they're not doing anything wrong. And so then what happens is you're just like, no, you can't do this. No, please don't do that. No. And it's that negative reinforcement that
Mhm.
kids are, they're not going to understand that we're trying to keep them safe and trying to keep others safe. They
Right.
are going to hear it as I'm doing something wrong. I'm doing something wrong. And I'm really concerned about that. So I don't, I, I think that I think that everyone, the professionals, the teachers, everyone is doing a really amazing job being creative about how to connect kids so much. I think that we're just up against this kind of like innate human nature to want to be near people, and it's a struggle.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult. I know even for me, I've started like I'll be watching TV shows or movies and I'll see people standing next to each other and I kind of am like, wait, they can do that? I don't know if that's something that other people have been experiencing, but for me, I've really been kind of I'm not used to being near people and it kind of freaks me out now to like go close to someone because it's just been so long. So I can only imagine what, you know, a younger child who doesn't fully understand would be thinking, and the impact that's going to have kind of over the next few years even.
Yeah.
Um, I did want to discuss a little bit about schools and online schooling versus possibly going back to school, and kind of the best options. I know some parents have chosen to opt out of online schooling for their kids, just for their, you know, emotional well-being, and some, you know, just I think it's just useful to talk about different ways to make online school work, or, you know, when to pull your kid out if that's the best decision, or kind of just how to maintain like the mental and like physical health of your child while they're, you know, struggling with school.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, we've all been homeschooling. I don't count it as homeschool. You know, we're remote learning right now. My kids have finished today, and I think that we've all done the very best that we could to try to keep the kids to have some semblance of normalcy. I think it's been a huge struggle, because we're in the middle of a pandemic. Like this is something that hasn't happened ever, and yet we're sitting here going, okay, we still got to go to school. Like the world's shutting down and we need to go to class now. Like, and that's a very interesting commentary on our society. And so I think for one, parents need to do what they feel is best for their children at that time. And I've been hearing that from teachers and therapists. Like, um, during school time, like if your kids are struggling, you know, reach out to the teachers, talk to the teachers, you know, communicate with them, see how they can help. And if there's days where your kids just aren't having it, that's a choice that that parent needs to make, to say, you know what, today, what is going to be the best for my child's emotional health? Is it going to be fighting with this child about learning math, or is it going to be reading some books with this child and sitting with them because they clearly need that right now? If that parent has the ability to do that while they're working. I mean, you're asking parents to work from home and home remote learn with children, and that is a challenge. I mean, knowing how knowing how sick we all get at the beginning of the year when my kids go to school every year, it's a no-brainer, I think, to have them not be in school.
Mm-hmm.
I just think now we're being given this, and I'm going to say opportunity and not challenge. We're being given an opportunity to figure out how we can educate our kids from home and multitask, and what is absolutely necessary and what's not. And so, as far as like when it transitioned over, I have two different styles of kids. I have a child that does have access to school services, and I have a child that doesn't.
Okay.
So the schools did a pretty good job of keeping IEPs and everything, meetings and things like that, and trying to figure out how do we give any services that are needed to the child that needs it. I think they did a pretty good job, and I think that if you need to advocate for your child on that piece of it, like, to do so. And then my daughter was kind of blessed with a really amazing teacher who would actually come over and do social distance walks with her.
Oh,
And
cute.
and take her, they did meditating in her class. And so she would take her for like 10 minutes, and they'd go for a walk, and they would meditate, and follow safe protocol procedures and things. And that really made a difference for Leia, because she really misses her teacher a lot. And so I would see her be calmer and stuff after that. So, still having that teacher, even come over to that yard, and really try to make that effort for the kids, even though we are remote learning. The school was able to let us borrow a computer because I needed mine to work. Zachary needed one for his school, and we were short one. So trying to find access to technology when, we couldn't afford to just buy a computer at that moment. The school was really good about that. And then I think the biggest thing is learning what are skills that we need to actually, and I don't want to say the stuff we learn at school is not valid. It is, but there were days where I was like, science today is going to be doing this baking project, or it's going to be outside taking a walk and learning what do we see in nature, or kind of incorporating what our family likes to do into the actual curriculum to make it something that I know that kids would enjoy. And so trying to figure that piece of it out. But to say that it's been an easy process, it hasn't at all. And moving forward in the fall, having seen the CDC guidelines currently, I can't imagine, to be honest, sending my kids to school. And I never thought I would be that mom that's all right, we may homeschool for a year. But I think that I'm trying to maintain some semblance of control in the situation where, thing is not. And so I'm looking at it now as school is closed and we are a few months out from it starting again, to say I have the option of homeschooling my kids for a year. I wouldn't do it permanently, but for a year to kind of let things settle. And my biggest concern is because of the fact that kids need to socially distance so much, and they're talking about eating alone at school, and having closed playgrounds, and having partitions around your desk, and all these things that are just so isolating to kids, that you're going to take kids that have been home all summer where they've been able to interact with certain people, and for 6 hours a day you're going to put them in a school structure where they're going to be getting and unintentionally this negative reinforcement of, you can't go near kids, you can't do this stuff, you have to, and I just feel I don't feel for my kids that is something that's going to be in their best interest or healthy emotionally for them. And my biggest my biggest thing right now, knowing where my kiddos are at with their needs in school, or where they're what they do great in school, like, is their social emotional health. Like, how are they doing through this? What is going to be in the best interest of them? And I think that we're kind of lucky that we live in the US, where we get the option to say, I'm going to keep my kiddos home, or, maybe the school will have an option that, may be able to find a balance of some sort. But,
yeah, definitely. I think there's a huge value in, being able to say, like you said today, science is going to be baking something, because those, or cooking something, or going on a walk, or,
mm-hmm.
art, doing something, together as a family, because that's the stuff that I think kids are going to remember and families are going to remember. I know, at least for me, even when we weren't in a global pandemic, when I was a kid, like I pick up a lot from like actually doing stuff and kind of engaging with the world around me. So I think that's going to be super useful for not only parents but also kids to kind of realize, like, it's okay that you're not, having a formal education right now, because there's stuff going on and you're going to pick up, valuable skills, even just existing in the world right now and like dealing with everything that's happening. So I think that's definitely valuable.
Yeah, these kids are watching us right now. They're watching. I mean, kids watch us all the time, and they learn from us. And the kids are watching us right now and learning about resilience. How are our parents coping with such changes? How is our family coping with such changes? And, I know that there is some people have said, oh, take this time to slow down. You're not in traffic. You're not, if you're not going to work, whatever is going on with your family. But like, I wouldn't say that life has slowed down. If anything, it's gotten faster. I do so much laundry. It's just, I don't understand. And and so much dishes, and I cook so many meals, and but like, I think it's the quality. It's our kids are watching, like, how resilient are we? Are we still getting out of bed every day? Are we still doing some stuff that we used to? Oh, mom's working out right now, like, that's something consistent that we know she does. Or my son and I, my little ones go with their dad on Wednesday evening to Thursday morning. And so on Thursday mornings, my older son and I have been taking short hikes, like, nearby, or walks. And we've been able to talk about stuff that I would never have time to talk about if, I was racing to work every day. And so I think kids are learning a lot of life stuff right now.
Yeah,
And
I
so it's
think,
really being mindful of, like, going back to that whole thing about putting your oxygen mask on, so that you're able to teach them what they need to know, about how do we move through a time that's unprecedented.
yeah, I think it's super valuable. So the one last kind of topic I wanted to talk about is just, going into the future, depending on how long this lasts, we don't really know what type of social impact this is going to have on our society and kind of how we're going to continue from this. But what do you think are some potential impacts that this social distancing and like just the environment of this pandemic could have kind of on our children and our families, like not only with social interaction, but with like family structure and just kind of like, how do we move forward from this in like a healthy way?
So I think, each family structure is going to be different. It really does take a village to raise kids. And so, from my own experience being a single parent, I worked really hard to build that village of really good people. And to all of a sudden have that kind of taken away by a virus, and having me have to navigate quite a few things was stressful. And so I think moving forward, for each family, they have to look at, for one, what are things that you know, they need to do to maintain that emotional health. You know, is it allowing, you may have to look at your social circle differently. You know, it may be that, okay, maybe we aren't seeing our grandparents for a year because they're older and they're high risk, but maybe we know that, you know, this neighbor and that friend, you know, are going to become our new support system. And you know, if we're going to be homeschooling, we're going to figure out how to make that work together. I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be an interesting challenge for people to try to create some new family dynamics and you know, new ways to interact with people. I think moving forward, I mean, it forces us to communicate differently with people. I mean, I see us kind of being in this like 6 foot away thing for quite some time now, and the mask thing, and so um, I think for families, like a lot of what I'm hearing is, I don't want to go back to the way that life was. You know, I have a
Mhm.
friend where she said, you know, she was in the hairdressing, you know, business. She's a hairdresser. And she was like, I just don't want to go back to the way that my life was. It was kind of chaotic. I think that this virus situation has challenged us to look critically at how we were living and like, and the things, the schedules and everything that we did have. And moving forward, like, what what do we want our lives to look like? Do we need to have two working parents to have, you know, extra cars and extra houses, or do we need, like, what are our priorities?
Mhm.
And and that's going to be different for each family.
Yeah.
You know, and I would hope that, you know, prioritizing everyone's kind of like emotional health, physical health, things like that would be kind of a top priority for people. Um, I don't think that I don't think our lives are ever going to be the same, to be honest. I don't think that the way that we interact with people is ever going to be the same. But that doesn't mean that it has to be. That's not a bad thing necessarily. It's just different.
Yeah.
And you know, eventually I'm sure that we'll get back to being able to hug people and, you know, hug more people, but
Yeah.
like, you know, than in our social circle. But I, I I think it's a really interesting time to be able to like reflect on what we really would like with our lives, you know, what we would really like, who is in our social circle for one, you know what I mean? Like all of a sudden it pushes everybody out, and there may be people that were in there that you're like, I don't want them in there.
Yeah.
And now they're not. You know, and so I think it's just a really good time to be reflective on, what do I want my life to look like moving forward? Was this the job that I had that was for me? Do I want to work 70 hours a week? Was that beneficial to my children? Is there something good? I had a friend say her daughter actually really liked homeschool and asked the guidance counselor at the school, can I continue to homeschool?
Mhm.
And they're like, yeah. You know, so it's giving people the opportunity to think about making different decisions about their life that they didn't, I think, even realize they had the option to choose.
Yeah.
um and you know, I think also too, like virus specific wise, um I think it's also kind of showing people that we really need to prioritize our health, our physical health. You know, I've seen some studies come out that say that some people that have been impacted or by COVID, it's not necessarily the people that have had asthma, you know, specifically, but also people that may have had some underlying conditions because of like poor eating and obesity and things like that.
Mhm.
And you know, I would hope that maybe people would challenge themselves to, you know, take their physical health as a priority and make that a family thing. You know, to be teaching our kids positive, you know, positive eating, and you know, and why it's important to exercise, and you know, all of that. So, um, you know, I think sometimes we look at scary situations that are rightly so scary, and we only see like the negative and everything. And I hope that moving forward, people do kind of find the rainbows in the storm of, you know, how can we come out of this as better people, kinder people, and kinder to everybody, you know, and helping others. I've seen a lot of people helping families, you know, a lot of organizations helping other organizations to make sure people are safe, you know, and stuff like that. And so I I'm excited and kind of encouraged to hear families and stuff talking about maybe positive things are coming out of it.
Yeah, I think that's really valuable. Definitely like being able to, like, there's a lot of suffering, a lot of struggling, but being able to see, the silver lining, if there is some. I think, there can be, you just have to look for it and adapt. That's definitely one of the harder parts. I think that's a wonderful place to end. It's kind of, on the up, kind of a happy note. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for talking about everything that you discussed. I think a lot of the stuff is really valuable, at least even for me. I feel really like positive and happy right now, just kind of discussing all this stuff. So I hope that you got something out of it, and then whoever's listening also gets, whatever they need out of this. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Of course.